I'm here to talk to you today about the homing pigeon. The homing pigeon has been recorded in history more than 5,000 years. They were first used for carrying messages by the Greeks. The Greeks used them to send messages about the Olympics, back to of who won the Olympics from the first Olympics. They were used in Mesopotamia, Egypt. All of them used them for military. They were generally used more for, like I said, military to carry messages. The most dependable way for them to get messages back and forth. Go ahead, just turn them loose.
Throw him up in the air.
Throw him up in the air. Let's see, where am I going now? World War I, they were used a lot. In 1914, I believe it was, the French-Persian War, the Persians had Paris siege. The French would smuggle pigeons out on hot air balloons. In a 4-month period, more than 1 million messages were sent back to Paris via pigeons. There was a military general once that said that pigeons were the cheapest form of communications. You can feed them pennies on the day, and they'll get 98% of your messages back to where you want them to go. They've been used today in conflicts. Iraq, the Syrians are using them. The Chinese military has just started buying up a bunch of racing pigeons. They have started their own signal corps again. During World War II, both the Germans and the Allies used them. And the Germans went so far as to train falcons to get the pigeons to keep the Allies' messages from reaching home. And they stationed these falcons all over. Here, I'll get it. Hold on, let me get it. And so they're very dependable. Pigeons are there's 6 animals that they say will pass what they call a mirror test, which recognize themselves. Pigeon is the only one that is not a mammal. The record on a pigeon reaching home was 92.7 miles an hour. They average 60 miles an hour when flying home. Yeah. The only major predator they have is a hawk, and the only time he can catch them is if he can get the drop on them as far as when they're coming in or they're taking off. On a flat run, he will outrun them.
Is that one of them right there?
No, that's a buzzard. Average pigeon lives 10 years. 10 years is how long they raise. Their average heartbeat is 100 beats per minute. During flight, they can jump that to 600 and hold it there for 16 hours. Within 2 minutes of landing on the loft, their heart rate returns back to its normal beat. I'm going to turn those loose. Those aren't. These all are race birds. I race them an average of 250 miles on any race. They will come home. The ones that I just turned loose were my long distance birds. They will come home less. It takes them 12 hours to do 500 miles. And that's on the day. And they were in the middle of the speed chart. So there were birds that came home faster at that distance than what those ones did. They're not your average. They're not what you see in the barns. These are I train these daily. They're just they call them the racehorses of the sky. They're raced all over the world. And on any given day, there's at least 2 races somewhere in the world being run.
Were these used as courier pigeons?
Yes, sir. They were used by the military. Is what they came from. At one time, there was more than 7,000 birds used on D-Day alone. A bird by William of Orange was the bird that carried the message back to London on D-Day invasion, that the D-Day was successful. There was a bird called Mary of Exeter. She was used for spies. She made something like, offhand I think it was 15 runs across the English Channel. All of them were successful. Several of them, she came home wounded. G.I. Joe was another bird that was awarded what they called the Dickens Medal. The Dickens Medal was given to animals during the war. More than any other animal, pigeons received that medal for carrying messages home. In fact, in one time, everybody's heard of, what is James Bond? MI6? MI1, whatever.
007.
During the World War II, the British actually had MI14, which was their secret pigeon intelligence thing. What they would do is, in the middle of the war, after World War I, an armistice was signed, we took Germany's weapons away from them. We didn't take their birds away from them. So Germany really developed a pigeon corps. How the British beat that is when they put their falcon corps in, their falcons would catch the German pigeons going over, so the British would take pigeons, label them like German birds, and drop them back over into Germany. They weren't homers. So therefore they would smuggle these birds back into England to carry, spy messages. Yeah, it's quite funny. Pigeons have been used all the time. The big Reuters, I believe it's called, the big European news agency, the way he got his messages was he had a central location, and all of his reporters before the telegraph would use messenger pigeons. So he stayed one jump ahead of all the other news agencies until shortwave radio came up. Even during telegraph, his reporters would use pigeons. Those pigeons would return to the central news agency, and from there he would dispatch the news via telegraph. They have been used since time began. One of the things that I learned was the Dark Ages, when they would have all their wars. If you wanted to capture a kingdom, you went and destroyed their pigeons first. If you destroyed their pigeons, they had no communication. So, yeah. There's still 6 armies in the world that have a pigeon corps. They are Israel, China, Iraq, France, and Turkey, I believe. Still to this day, keep pigeons. Like I was saying earlier, I've read stories of the conflict in Syria and the conflict in Libya. The rebels were using pigeons to get their messages across. Because you can jam electronics, you can't jam a pigeon. The only way you can get him is either put a falcon on him or shoot him. He will. The U.S. military had some in the islands during World War II that they trained to fly at night. And those birds I think they said they had 70% chance, 70% return rate. Now you got to understand, the pigeon ain't got much better eyesight at night than a chicken. So how they did it, we don't know. There's 3 ways they say a pigeon flies. One is by memory. Some people say that a pigeon has the ability to see magnetic lines. I don't know. I race these guys. You ought to hear some of the things they come up with.